Seahawks sideline.
Wow, when D.K Metcalf came over to the sideline, you see it right here. Through his helmet, had some words, and this is something we talked to Brian Schottenheimer about, particularly in the Week 10 matchup. And Schotty's saying to us, let's not forget, he's a young player, he was agitated, he was frustrated in that.
If you're anything like me, sometimes you want a little bit of extra action on an upcoming game that you're going to watch. But of course, if you're going to be betting on a game, chances are you want to win. Wouldn't it be nice to have an expert advisor in your corner telling you what the best bet is to make and your odds of winning that bet? Well, with Edge Sports, you get all of that in a simplified platform that will advise you what are the best bets to make for upcoming games. So it's Wild Card weekend, and I really want some extra action this week just to make things a little bit more interesting. So I go to edgesports.com. Right away, when you get to the homepage, you could see that they have NCAA men's matchups, they have NCAA football matchups, the matchup between Ohio State and Alabama over here. I'm going to go and select the NFL tab up here and go to NFL Home. I think the best opportunity we have to make a fairly good bet for ourselves is probably Baltimore versus Tennessee, because you never know who's going to win between those two. At least I don't know. So you get to the main page between the Baltimore Ravens and the Tennessee Titans, and here you see something called GWC. Well, this is your game-winning chance. This is a team's win probability, and it's generated from Edge Sports' simulation model, which simulates each game 400,000 times. So right here, out of 400,000 simulations, the Baltimore Ravens won 56.6% of those simulations, whereas the Tennessee Titans won 43.4% of those simulations. Now, if you scroll down a little bit more, say if you want to see who's the most likely to cover the spread, well, it looks like, according to these analytics, it has the Tennessee Titans with a 48% chance to cover the spread when they did those simulations, whereas the Baltimore Ravens only have 43% chance to cover. So what if you want to bet the over-under? Well, Edge Sports has a remarkable tool for that as well. You can see we're starting out over here with 54 total points, assuming that we're trying to bet the under. The market line is 55.5. So say if you want to bet the over in this situation, well, as you go to the right, Edge Sports continues to change the probability of the over and under outcomes. And this could be a fantastic tool in the event that the lines get changed, or if you just want to see what the probability is that an over-under occurs. Now, if you click my link in the description, you will get a 14-day free trial, and if you use my promo code Mikerophone, you'll get 50% off of all subscriptions as well. That's again, promo code Mikerophone for 50% off on all subscriptions as well, and thank you Edge Sports for the sponsor. 2 weeks ago, the Los Angeles Rams were possibly on the cusp of not even making it to the NFL playoffs. Bear in mind, this is the team that literally lost to the New York Jets, and the number one thing that has always been plaguing the Los Angeles Rams is the fact that they're maddeningly inconsistent. 1 week, they're absolutely out-dueling Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at their own freaking stadium, and the very next week, they're losing to the lowly San Francisco 49ers when the 49ers don't even have Jimmy Garoppolo playing. So how on earth was the Los Angeles Rams able to completely decimate the Seattle Seahawks despite having a putrid offense and facing a top 5 MVP candidate in Russell Wilson and a remarkably freakish wide receiver in D.K Metcalf? Well, let me show you guys a couple of your takes on Twitter as I explain to you guys why this outcome came to be, because we all know that the Seattle Seahawks were initially favored in this matchup. In the very beginning, it had all to do with the Los Angeles Rams defense. From the very beginning of the game, which I really wish I could show you highlights, but you know, the NFL isn't really down with me doing that, but I'll just explain to you guys what happened. In the very beginning of the game, in the first quarter, we literally saw a punt war that was sandwiched in between a Matt Gay field goal for the Los Angeles Rams. Then in the second quarter, we saw a little bit more of the same before Russell Wilson eventually threw an interception. At this point, it was clear that Pete Carroll was getting absolutely outcoached by Sean McVay, because if you look at the Los Angeles Rams offense, you would be able to tell that this offense has absolutely nothing going for it. Every part of their offense, from their offensive line that's really freaking old, featuring a 40-year-old left tackle by the name of Andrew Whitworth, all the way down to their quarterback that's paid almost $40 million a year, but has been playing without a thumb, essentially. This was an offense that couldn't move at all whatsoever. The thing is, the Seattle Seahawks essentially put points on the board for the Los Angeles Rams, starting with an interception in the second quarter thrown by Russell Wilson. After that, Russell Wilson was able to finally get going, finding D.K Metcalf for a 51-yard touchdown before Cam Akers finally was able to score an offensive touchdown for the LA Rams, which is something that has always been very rare considering how tough it's been for the Rams recently on offense. As the game continued, it became painfully obvious that the Los Angeles Rams had absolutely suffocated the Seattle Seahawks with their defense. The Seahawks could barely move themselves, and that's because there's this huge misconception about the LA Rams. You see, 2 years ago, they were able to make it to the Super Bowl and face off against the New England Patriots on the backs of their remarkable offense. And their defense was pretty stellar, featuring players like Ndamukong Suh, Aqib Talib, Marcus Peters, and Aaron Donald. But now their entire team's identity is based upon their defense. And they obviously don't have as many offensive weapons. They got rid of Brandon Cooks, but that's mainly because they had to pay Jared Goff. And when this defense is clicking, combined with Sean McVay's masterful game plan, then the Los Angeles Rams have the ability to take players like Russell Wilson out of the game. And that's in part due to remarkable strategizing from Sean McVay. But on the flip side, when a team finally catches the Los Angeles Rams in their weakness and they're finally able to get points on the Rams early, that's when they bump into trouble. If you ask me, the turning point of this game was when the Los Angeles Rams were able to get to a 13-3 lead. Once you give a defensive team a lead and all they have to do is run the ball, then you're in some trouble there, because at that point they're essentially trying to kill the clock to the rest of the game while you're trying to force deep balls, which is what Russell Wilson was trying to do, which is what the Los Angeles Rams wanted him to do. But throughout the entire year, we already knew that the Seattle Seahawks had an additional weakness that could come back to haunt them in this game, and that's the fact that they didn't have a stellar defense themselves. In the middle of the game, we saw players like Bobby Wagner go out for the Seattle Seahawks, but we also saw players like Aaron Donald go out for the Los Angeles Rams. Nevertheless, it turned out to be the LA Rams that had all the answers today, and that's the reason that they ended up winning. If you ask me, I don't really know about their luck moving forward, because this is a team that's 100% dependent upon their defense to make plays for them, and that's a fairly dicey game plan moving forward for any NFL team. The Pittsburgh Steelers are in a very similar situation as the Los Angeles Rams. I don't know what we're going to see from their quarterback situation either. Is Jared Goff going to be good enough to play next week, or are we going to see Blake Bortles make a return in the NFL playoffs? As for the Seattle Seahawks, I really do feel for Seahawks fans because I'm a huge fan of Russell Wilson, but you also have to understand that the fact that you got this far, despite the defensive inadequacies that you guys had, on the back of Russell Wilson creating the plays that he created, in of itself is pretty remarkable, and that's something that you should hang your hat on. However, the bad news for Seahawks fans is the fact that they don't have a first-round pick this year. They don't have a third-round pick this year because they traded that to get Jamal Adams. So they're going to have to look at free agency to potentially plug in any of the holes that they currently have on their roster. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think? If you weren't able to hit me on Twitter with your analysis, why did the Seattle Seahawks lose this game? Or did you expect the Los Angeles Rams to potentially win this game from the get-go? If so, what made you think that the Rams were going to pull this off? Because originally they were coming in with a backup QB and they were not favored at all to win this one. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.